Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Big Bold You, a show that was built for you to help you play bigger in your life. And when I talk about playing bigger, I don't mean just your actions, but it starts with your thinking. You have to think big. There's nothing that you can't do. You are limitless, and we are here to encourage you and inspire you to play bigger in your life because the world needs you playing bigger. We want to help inspire you to be bolder, which means you do have to step out of your comfort zone. You do have to do things that you think in your head, there's no way in the world I could do this. Yes, you can. You just can't do it by yourself. So you can ultimately become the best version of you. Every Monday at 3 p.m. Central, we are coming to you on Facebook as well as YouTube, Jen's Johnson channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Please get your friends and your family to subscribe and let us know what are the topics and who are the people that you want to hear from. We truly, sincerely want to make this world a better place, and we only can do that if we are working together. I believe that we live in a world where there is a war between good and evil, and the only way evil wins is when good people like you, like me, and like our incredible guest, Catherine Clark, when we don't do enough. So welcome, Catherine.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be a part of your mission.
Listen, y'all are going to love Catherine. And one of the things I like to do is I like to get to know the person a little bit before we get into the topic. But I told Catherine, I said, Catherine, I might have you come back 3 or 4 times because health care is a huge topic. So just briefly tell us a little bit about you, and then we're going to jump into our topic today. It's endless because we don't know.
That's right. You don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, I've been in the health insurance business since about 2007, 2008. And, it wasn't always beautiful.
No.
This was before Affordable Care Act, so things were quite a bit different there. So I have kind of the eyes for what was really going on before then and what's going on now and how to improve upon that. And a couple years ago, I brought my son into work with me, and so that's made it even more exciting.
Right. Well, so here's something. I mean, not every show do I have my phone up, but I have it up today. And the reason for that is if you're watching and you have some questions for Catherine regarding health care insurance, please just type it up and I'm going to do my best to watch it and help. But I want to tell everybody a personal story that I'm going through that I've shared with Catherine. Mm-hmm. And that is about probably 3 weeks ago, my mother fell. She's 84 years old. She's got Alzheimer's. She's got dementia. She has diabetes. She fractured her hip. She fractured her femur, and she's been in the system. And one of the things I say is what you don't realize, if you're not in the system or you don't have a loved one that's in the system, we live in a world right now where the insurance companies, they are directing people's care. No longer is it when the doctor says, okay, it's time to transfer her from the hospital to the rehab facility. It's when the insurance companies say it's time to transfer her. So I didn't think that she was ready to be transferred from the hospital to the healthcare facility, to the rehab facility. But guess what? Her insurance company did, because they said, we're not paying for the hospital anymore.
Right.
Then she was in the rehab facility, and the rehab facility, the insurance company said the same thing. We don't think she needs to be in that rehab facility anymore. So now we've got her into memory care. But along the way, during this process, it's the insurance companies that are directing where she goes, directing her health care. And let me tell you, I'm a healthy person, Catherine, so I haven't gotten in the system very much, but there are so many people that are in the system and they don't have a clue what's going on. So please start to educate us a little bit about what our rights are, what we should be doing with health care when we're healthy, and just how much control do we have, and what are the questions that we need to be asking and the actions that we need to be doing to safeguard ourselves.
All right. Well, in summary, I think I would say that you definitely need to take control. Everything in life is negotiable. And a lot of the physicians and such are not any happier about the state of the insurance these days either. And so Gone are the days when you used to walk into the doctors and just pay your $20 copay and forget about it. You have to pay a little more attention. I actually had a colleague that really came up with this analogy. You know, years ago we had the flip phone and it was not a big deal. You just opened it up and used it and it was easy breezy. Now you have a smartphone.
Right.
So every time we get a new one, we kind of have to learn a little bit about it and to make it work for us. So all that is to say is that you do need to do your part in order to make it work for you. You need to be more educated and know what to say to the doctors because, or it's not so much the doctors as it is the people who work in the office. And they don't always know either. So sometimes you have to educate them and tell them how things need to be or how they should go.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. For me, okay, so the way my brain works, you work at a job and the job is giving you health care benefits. So what is our right and what should we be asking our company and how should we even negotiate that step?
Okay, well, if your job is offering you health care, first of all, you should look at it and see if it's any good. Because used to be, people always wanted to get group health insurance because they're like, oh, that's the best way to go. Well, companies can't afford the best anymore like they used to. So you'd want to look at that. You'd also want to see if they're paying for it or if you're paying for it. Obviously, if they are paying for it, that's part of your benefit package. So you can either negotiate a higher salary or you accept that. But what people don't know is that they don't have to put their family on that group health insurance, that they're better off going outside and getting an individual plan because group health insurance is more expensive because it's not underwritten.
And so, you know what? And to me, that is probably myth number one, because most people think group insurance is going to be less expensive because you've got more people in the pot. And so it's going to be less expensive. It's going to be a better deal. It's going to be a better policy. And that's not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily, because you have a group of people and you have 50-plus-year-olds that maybe have had some health issues.
That's
and they're
point.
paying for the 20-some-year-olds who are going to have babies, and those 20-some-year-olds are paying for the health issues of the older. So the insurance company is going to take that into consideration. So an example I'll give you is we had a company that only had 11 employees, and this gentleman was paying for everybody's insurance in his company, and it cost him $80,000 a year, and it was a Blue Cross type plan with a $6,000 deductible. And gave them our signature plan, our flagship plan, and they're paying $47,000, with first day coverage. So one of the things that we do for companies is just that we can give them an underwritten plan, but get guaranteed if you have a certain number of people. But yes, it is a myth, and that may have been the case many years ago, but it is no longer the case.
So I think lesson number one is, first, I don't care where you work, and I don't care what the plan is that they're offering. During open enrollment in October, you need to get with somebody that is an expert in health insurance, and you need to say, can you please review this policy? And my husband and I, we go through this every October because I did work in healthcare for over a decade. And so I always go through and he'll say, this is great. It's great because it costs less money. And a lot less money for us, that is. And I say, well, that's not necessarily means it's great, but I don't know. I really need to have somebody like you review the policy. Step number one. Step number two is, to your point, maybe this is okay for the employee because it's not costing you anything, but you shouldn't put your family on it. There might be a private option that's better.
Most of the time, that's the case. And let me also kind of clear something up or clarify something about open enrollment. Every company has an open enrollment, and that's aside from the Affordable Care Act open enrollment. And at that time is when you get to elect to put your family on it as well as yourself, or change your plan or what have you. But another thing that people don't know is that they can take their family off at any time. They can't come off until the next open enrollment, but they can take their family off at any time. And so I work with a lot of people. They'll say, well, I like this plan, but I'm on, and I can walk them through it, right? I can walk them. They're not required to
Because
stay on it.
because here's a couple things. Number one is I've always thought that you're locked in for the whole complete year.
Just
So
the
the
employee.
just the employee is locked in,
Yes.
but your family is not locked in. So
Correct.
you can look to see if there's a better option for you.
Correct.
That's even better coverage as well as a better price point for you at the same time.
Correct. And one thing that you would be interested in knowing as well, Jen, is that we offer gap plans. Everybody's heard about gap plans for vehicles, right?
But explain to people what the gap plan is.
Well, so let's say you do keep your plan at work, but it has a $6,000 deductible. There are gap plans that'll cover that, so that makes that plan 100% plan. So it doesn't work in every situation,
Wow.
but it's definitely something to look at with certain people.
That's amazing. So if you've got one of those high deductible plans, you can get a secondary, or is it just the gap plan? Is it considered a secondary or no?
No, it pays with it. So
Okay.
like for inpatient, it covers up to 100%. So if someone has a $5,000 deductible and then it goes, let's say 80/20, up to say 7,000. So that really means they're out of pocket $7,000 on the plan that they have. They can get a $7,000 gap policy. So now if they are have a medical event, they go to the hospital, they're 100% covered.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yep.
But see, and another thing too is, believe me, there's so many things to talk about when it comes to healthcare. But now, when you get old, a lot of people are going to be in long-term care facilities or assisted living facilities. And you and I were talking about that yesterday, where I didn't know, but gosh, if you don't have that long-term care health insurance by the time you're in your 60s, forget about it, because you're not going to qualify. And what are the pros and the cons about that? I mean, should we all be saying, okay, look, let's just take the best care of ourselves, but in our 60s, make sure we have long-term health care, or should we not do that?
I can't say that that's necessarily my area of expertise. I have someone in my office, so I know a little bit about it. And long-term care is typically the best way to get it is through a life insurance policy or an
Okay.
annuity where it doubles as long-term care. Like
right.
I have a product for employers that I can provide life insurance for their employees, guaranteed issue up to $150,000, which means no health questions, which means if you work somewhere and your husband has had a heart attack, we can still get him this life insurance, right? $150,000. God forbid, should he need it as long-term care, it doubles to
Oh,
$300,000.
wow. Now
So there are
that's
some better
amazing.
ways. There's some better ways to do it than just write out buying a long-term care policy, but you can do that. It's just very difficult to qualify for, and they're very expensive.
So the best way to handle that really is to go through the life insurance route.
Yeah, life insurance or annuity, there's some products out
Okay.
there that really help with that.
All right. Now, something that you mentioned when we were talking, and again, if anybody has questions, y'all throw the questions on Facebook and I'll have Catherine answer them for us. But we're talking about how consumers truly do own your PPO network. And explain that to us, because
Yeah.
I promise you, I didn't know that.
Well, we carry a lot of different products at Frederick Insurance Brokers, but we have a flagship product, or what I call our signature product. It's one I'm on, my kids are on, my grandkids are on, and I sell in all across the country, so it's my favorite plan. And the thing I like about it, there's a lot of things, but the power behind the plan is that the PPO network, nationwide, large, well-respected network, is owned by by us, the consumer. So what that means is that we get the PPO repricing, or the wholesale pricing, if you will, instead of the insurance company. Does that make sense?
Yes, but explain that.
Okay.
Because the only reason why it makes sense to me is because I've been in healthcare before.
Right. So like in the old days when we were talking about the $20 copay, where you just, you hand them your $20, you think, oh, that's cool.
Right.
But what you don't know, and I'm going to oversimplify this, is the insurance company has gone to the provider and said, hey, I have 1 million subscribers, so you need to give me a discount. And the provider's like, well, okay, right? They don't have any choice, right? So let's say they agree to a $60 office visit. You go in and throw your $20 or $30 copay down. The insurance company pays the balance. So who's winning? Because you're paying a high premium for the right to pay that copay. So with this plan, It's different. You have the average doctor visit across the country is $150. So with this particular plan, we get a 40 to 60% repricing, PPO repricing, or the wholesale price. So if you take that $150 and if you get a 40% discount, now it's $90, right? Well, our plan pays $160 for a doctor visit. So that means that $90 is covered, and they actually send the balance to you.
That's amazing. So instead of the overage going back to the insurance company, the overage comes back to you. And you
Correct.
get a check.
Correct.
I'm liking the way this sounds, Catherine.
So what it is that you have a high-end defined benefit plan with the wholesale price. The plan always pays what the plan pays regardless of the price. But when you combine the two with the wholesale price, you make out. So it protects your health and your income. Just to give you a little bit of history, before major medical became the monster that it is, there were plans called association plans, hospitalization plans, indemnity plans. They were very good in their day. They kind of got watered down. And then when you combine that with maybe being misrepresented to the consumer, they kind of got a bad name. But this particular company's been around for 75 years, and not only are they still doing that very well, they kind of have a hybrid of it, but they've just improved upon it. And the rates are stable, and they never kick you off the plan either.
Oh, that's amazing. Because that's, so many people, they, because the insurance companies really are calling the shots. If somebody does have pre-existing health issues, you hear about it all the time. It's like, well, we couldn't get insurance. We couldn't get insurance because of our pre-existing issues. And you're saying this, you're not going to get kicked off. And can you even get coverage with?
Right. So let me clarify that since you brought up the pre-existing. Any underwritten plan is always going to have pre-existing. The difference with this plan is that you still get the PPO repricing.
Oh, okay, I got you.
So for that first year, okay, after that, you're covered and they'll never kick you off the plan. So it has liberal underwriting. I mean, we can even insure a diabetic who takes oral medication. So their office visits won't be covered the first year.
Right.
They won't get that $160, but they'll get the repricing.
Okay.
And then after that, they're covered and they'll never be kicked off the
So,
plan.
I mean, I am definitely going to have you talk with my dad and myself, because that's one of the issues. My mom's diabetic, and because her diabetes isn't regulated, and don't get me started on the reason why, because of the rehab facility that she was in. She was regulated in the hospital, but when she got to the rehab facility, they weren't following the orders that she was discharged with at the hospital, which is another thing. So for me, working in healthcare for 10 years, I know that if you have a loved one that goes into the hospital or anywhere else, you better have somebody that love and trust, hopefully a family member there with them, because things just happen. I mean, it's like, why does somebody go into the hospital that needs operating on the left leg and the right leg gets operated? Because people make mistakes. We're only human. And nobody loves your loved ones as much as you do. So you really do have to be the advocate. And the other thing too is when you are old or when you are ill, your mind's not right. I mean, it's just not. It's just not. And so you've got anxiety. You don't know what you don't know. People are using words that you aren't familiar with, and you've got to have somebody on your behalf. Now, working and really listening and being your advocate. But one of the things that you said that I think is so interesting, and I know we're throwing a lot of things at you because we are going to have you come back, but you were talking about private care facilities and really what can happen at a private care facility versus a normal hospital, and explain that, because I didn't know this.
Right. So with the changes, all the changes that are happening in healthcare, one of the things that are becoming prevalent across the country are private healthcare facilities versus hospitals. I know of one in Plano and one in Oklahoma. So, to oversimplify, what this means is that they have the same environment that a hospital does, but they don't have the overhead, the administrators and that sort of thing. So you could go get a surgery that would cost $100,000 in a regular hospital that might only cost $20,000 in a private healthcare facility. And this is the same instruments, the same machines, the same diagnostic type things, same doctors, because a doctor practices usually in more than one hospital. So
Sure.
they may also practice in that particular. So it behooves the consumer to find a doctor that does practice in a private healthcare facility, because it's going to save them in the long run.
And how do we know that? How do we know that as a consumer? We just have to ask the
You
physician?
ask your doctor. Yeah,
Okay.
what they are affiliated with particular different hospitals.
Right.
So you find a private healthcare facility, and then you find a doctor who
I got you.
that practices
Right.
is affiliated with that private.
Okay, that makes
facility.
sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Now, let's talk a little bit about secondary insurance, because again, I'm talking about from personal experience, because this is what I'm going through. I mean, I was on vacation in Mexico over the weekend for Mother's Day. And just a big shout out for all the mothers, whether you are a mother to a human baby or a fur baby. Happy Mother's Day to you, because I know we do so much. But during my weekend in Mexico, I'm going back and forth with providers over insurance issues. So tell me about secondary insurance and what that means, and what is the benefit, and do we need it, and all of that.
Well, there are some rules about that secondary, and I think in your case we were talking about Medicare, which is a little bit different.
But no, this
right?
was United Healthcare as a secondary.
Right, but was it a United Healthcare Medicare plan?
I don't know. I'll have to have her look at it.
Yes. So is your mama over 65?
Yes.
So it's probably a Medicare plan.
Yes.
But what I could kind of address to that might be important is that this particular plan, flagship plan that I'm talking to you all about, it does pay in addition to any other plan.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas oftentimes when you do have a secondary, like let's say your husband has you at work and and then you have one at your job.
Mm-hmm.
One of them has to be a primary and one has to be a secondary. But in the case with this insurance that I'm telling you about, it pays in addition to. So let's just say you have a kiddo on a sports team, right? Sports associations oftentimes have their own insurance.
Right.
So they hurt themselves, you go to the emergency room, and you file it with the insurance with the sports association, and they pay it. Well, you can also file it with this plan, and they will pay it. The difference is they're going to pay it to you, because it pays in addition to. So that's another kind of cool thing about this.
And that's really great information, Catherine, because people don't understand that if your kids are playing for school, all schools have insurance. Mm-hmm. And it's the year. Well, first of all, I don't remember. I mean, I have 5 kids. All 5 kids played sports, and I don't remember anybody telling me about it. Now, I'm not saying they didn't. I'm not saying they didn't, because I'm busy. I got a lot of stuff going on. But I do remember when one of our kids got hurt, and the trainer said, "Oh, well, do you have the school's athletic insurance?" And I said, "No, I didn't even know that we had that." And they said, "Oh yeah, whatever." And I'm like, I must have missed that meeting, or I missed that piece of paper that came through. But all of them have it.
Correct.
They all have it. So you need to, as a parent, be aware of that and make sure that. Do you believe you should always get it for your kids?
Well, I think so. There's some kind of accident insurance is good to have, because more people end up in the hospital for accidents than cancer, stroke, and heart attack put together. We have a really awesome plan that costs $31 that pays up to $4,000 per accident. It pays $300 a day if a person's hospitalized for an accident. It pays up to $10,000 for an ambulance, air and ground, as well as some other things. But my point is that everybody's can pay $31 to kind of help them out with that, even if they couldn't afford
Now,
insurance.
is that $31 once or $31 a month?
A month. 31
I was going to say,
it's actually
$31
$31.05, but it's a month.
I'm going to spend that. I'm going to spend that as soon as we leave here.
And there's a discount if you do it for the family. But there are things like that available.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And see, the thing is as we all know, look, what you don't know can hurt you, but what you don't know, you're going to have to pay for. I mean, in all honesty,
Yeah. Yeah.
what you don't know, you're paying for. So to me, this is all information that every one of us needs to know, because we need to be making the most sound decisions about healthcare and insurance, and people don't know what they don't know. So
Exactly.
so how, I mean, the first thing I'm thinking about, and I don't know about y'all, but the first thing I'm thinking about is, well, we all need to know a Catherine. We all need to know a Catherine. So how do, is this something that you can help somebody all over the United States, or are you just here in Texas? How does that work?
No, we work all over the country, and I have a group of agents. So what we pride ourselves in is that we just want to see if we can improve your situation. We might just be validating that, hey, you have a great plan at a great price, keep it. But it's all about education. We even put all of our clients on a email drip to kind of remind them of special benefits of their plan as they go, because they forget. I get texts once in a while like, okay, I'm in the emergency room, remind me,
Right,
and
of
we
course.
do. And then we have a frequently asked questions page on our website, so people can go on there and remember certain things, certain aspects of that. But we just schedule appointments, talk to people. Some people buy a policy, some people don't. We never try to get them to buy it when we first talk to them. We have to learn about their situation and send them information after we talk to them, and because they need to make an informed decision.
Right.
I mean, I think in the last 18 months, the last I counted, we have 6 people who dropped off the books because maybe their husband got a job or
Right.
whatever. So people keep the plan,
Right.
because it's a good value for the money, because it's usually 30 or 40% less than what they're paying already. But once in a while, you come across somebody that has a good plan, or maybe it's their medical situation that you have to consider too. So then I'm going to say, you know what, stay where you are at least until this time, or kind of give them some advice in that way.
Well, see, that's what I think is so important is, first of all, we're all different and we all have different needs. And, when we have 5 kids in our family, and they're all adults now, 19 to 23, and they're amazing. I love you, children. They're great. But, for us, where we are in our lives, one of the things I think is so important, and I'm really big on mental health. What does this company cover with regards to mental health?
It covers the doctor visits.
Okay.
There are some additional riders and things, but oftentimes, again, this particular company, depending on their situation, may not be the place that I would put them. It's my favorite plan. There's really no one plan that's perfect for everyone.
Right.
Because if there were, none of us could afford it.
Right.
But it's going to pay, like if they're going to say for counseling, or their psychologist or psychiatrist, it will pay for that. And then if there's a prescription program and that sort of thing. So.
Okay, so one of the things I'm really big on here with mental health issue, it was the April 29th. April 29th, I had Chris and Martha Thomas on the show. I'm not sure if you saw that episode or not, but if you haven't watched that episode, please do. It's about suicide. Their son, Solomon Thomas, plays for the San Francisco 49ers. He was the number 3 draft pick a couple years ago. Well, their daughter last January at 24 years old died by suicide. And there is a video, ESPN video, that they did on the Thomas family and just really all the things that they're doing. Well, I'm also close friends with Dr. Lee, who is an incredible physician here in the Dallas-Plano area. And one of the things that we were talking about, and even the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, is our mental health is just as important as our physical health. And you can get your brain scanned. If you have anxiety, this is one of the things I loved about Dr. Lee. He was actually one of the keynote speakers at my event. Is anxiety, depression, all of that is normal in situations. but it's not normal to have excessive worry and anxiety and first of all, you think, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me. And most likely there's something wrong in your brain that can be treated.
Could be.
So one of the things that he does, and this was something that I talked about with Martha after our show, was if we could get our brain scanned. If you're one of those people that you're experiencing suicidal thoughts, you've tried to commit suicide already, you're confused, you're lonely, all these things, if you go get your brain scanned, there's a great possibility that they can find out what's going on within the brain. And even Dr. Lee showed PET scans of the brain from people that they were treated with St. John's wort. And they improved, their brain started to heal on natural things versus all of the medication. I know CBD, we had somebody talking about CBD oil a few weeks ago, as well as there's a lot of natural things that we can do to help.
It's about taking control of yourself.
And that, I think, is probably the biggest message when you and I were talking about this was, here's the message. You've got to take control. You've got to take control of your health. You've got to take control of your fitness, your wellness. You've got to take control of your insurance. You've got to take control of your finances. You have to take control of you.
Exactly. One thing you brought up about children, I should point out, is that a lot of people don't realize, too, that they can get their children insured alone. Like if they're 7, 8 years old or whatever, they don't have to be on the same policy. Like we work with teachers all over the country, but we have a lot of teachers in Texas because unfortunately the Texas teachers insurance is not very good. So literally we have thousands of teachers we work with, and it's better for them to keep, in most cases, I recommend that they keep the plan that the school offers them, because each district will contribute a certain amount, like maybe $125 or $300. So that's part of their pay because they're not going to get it in cash, right? So usually I have them keep it and get a gap plan, okay, and make that plan better. But we put their spouse and or their children on a plan outside, and it saves them anywhere from $9,000 to $22,000. Last year I had a gal that was working literally to pay insurance for her family, so we put $22,000 back in her paycheck.
Oh, that's amazing. But one of the things that I was just thinking about with your GAP plan, so like I said, I'm real big on mental health. I'm big on mental health awareness because I don't want anybody feeling alone. I don't want anybody thinking that they need to go commit suicide, because there is help. I promise you, there's help. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not crazy. It's something's wrong. Something's not right. So, but with the GAP plan, so most people, if you're going to go get your brain scanned, you're going to have to pay out of pocket. But most insurance companies will reimburse you 40 to 80%. But with this GAP plan, it sounds like there's a possibility that you could get total reimbursement.
Yeah, well, the GAP plan is going to cover the deductible.
Okay.
So, and that's for inpatient. For outpatient, it covers, it's going to be 50%. So if you have a GAP plan that's $10,000, then you've got $5,000 that's covered for outpatient, $10,000 for inpatient.
So this is one of the things I'm thinking as you're going to be really busy. Catherine, are you ready to be really busy? Because I think every one of us needs to say, here's our plan, Catherine, give us your assessment. But one of the things I'm really big on is, and you said it a couple times, which is just integrity and honesty. And if you can help somebody, you're going to help them. If you can advise them, and it might not be your signature plan. I mean, you've got a bunch of different plans that you work with, but you need somebody that has your best interest at heart. And that's what I love about you is you have other people's best interest at heart, and you've got this knowledge, and you're willing to share this knowledge with people because, listen, we're busy. We ain't got this time. We ain't got this kind of time to learn all this stuff.
Well, it's frustrating for people. And, the insurance, I got into the insurance business because it was a great way to raise my 2 boys. I was a single mom. And it didn't seem so glamorous. So I had to find a way to make it mean something to me. So now, now that I can say that it's not just about selling a policy, that I can actually, in an esoteric way, help people. I'm not out, building mission homes or something, but I'm doing something to help. And so I do think it's important in this day and time to have that kind of integrity and to give back. It all comes back the way it's supposed to, but it gives you a reason to get out of bed every day. And,
Definitely.
And when the money that I save for small businesses is just crazy to me, and that's probably that's as the reason I get out of bed every day.
Well, I will tell you this again, very personally, that when you're dealing with a loved one who is in the system, and you're dealing with potentially yourself, and you're being kicked out of places, or you're not being allowed to go into places because your health insurance, let me tell you, it gets real, and it gets real sad, and it gets real scary because you don't know. And yes, there are people that can help, but sometimes you don't know who those people are.
Right.
So having somebody, I'm real big, the theme of my event is creating winning life teams. And one of the things that we did this year was just asking the attendees, who are people that you believe you need to have on your life team? Now, we're going to take it a step further, and over the next 12 months, we're going to have post events, and we're going to actually have you as an expert at one of our post events, because everybody needs someone like you on their life team. You need someone on your life team that knows about insurance. You also need somebody that knows about life insurance. I mean, these are people that they're going to make your life better because of the knowledge and the experience that they have. Now, to close up, because we're getting tight on time, but I want you to tell people what a patient advocate is and what type of programs you have, because most people don't even know. The only reason why I know is because I worked in healthcare, but most people are clueless about that.
Okay. Well, my signature plan is partnered up with a company called the CARES Group. They're out of Austin. They've been around since the 80s, and they are patient advocates. So if someone has this particular plan, then they have free access to this, meaning it's not going to cost them. And what they'll do for you is, if you have a $2,500, if you have a medical event and it costs $2,500 or more, then they're going to go in and renegotiate on your behalf. So they kind of keep the doctors honest and such. And the thing about it is they don't make any guarantees like anybody else, but they have been doing this since the 80s, and their average is 70%.
That's wonderful.
But they're also really good at being a concierge. So, MRIs, most people think they cost a lot of money, like $2,500 or more. The truth is they cost about $400. So the CARES Group can find the people in the network in your area. They can send you a list, and they'll even make the appointment for you. But that's all part of being part of that network and having all those people, including the patient advocacies, work for you.
Right. And I don't know about you, but I do like it when people do things for me.
Yeah, make your appointments.
Because I'm busy. But there's a ton of different reasons. Number one, because you don't speak the same language. You don't know the lingo. You don't know the plans. And that's why there are people and there are companies that you can get an MRI, like you said, for $400, but then right down the street, they're charging $2,500 for an MRI, because you don't know that that's really what you can get an MRI for. So I love it that you have the patient advocates, and being in healthcare like I did, I'm very comfortable in healthcare facilities. I worked for a hospital for over 10 years. I don't mind going into a hospital. Some people, that's really scary. It's foreign. People don't realize that, to your point, you got to take control. They don't realize that you can ask certain questions. They don't realize that.
They don't. They're afraid, yeah.
I mean, I know if my husband's watching right now, when we first got married, he said, I kind of had this talk with him, and I said, now, if something goes wrong and I am passed out, obviously incoherent, and you've got to make these decisions, you need to ask the doctors XYZ. And this is what he said, Catherine. He said, I'm not going to ask the doctors anything. I'm just going to let them do whatever they think is best, because they're the ones in charge and they've got the experience. And I'm like, note to self, let me talk to somebody else that can help me if I'm laying down, because I'm like, no, that's not what you do.
No, in this day and time, you have to ask.
You have to ask, but to take the pressure off you, if you had a patient advocate that could advocate that has the experience, wow, now and to can negotiate and to set appointments, it's right up my alley. So I don't know about you guys watching out there, but Catherine, this is phenomenal information, And we are so appreciative for you sharing.
Thanks for having me. I want everybody to know that they're not stuck.
Right. You're not stuck. And I will say this. Even though you might think that you're stuck because you don't know the knowledge, you're not. Please put your questions, reach out to me either on my Facebook, on YouTube. Reach out to me at jensjohnson.com, whatever. We didn't do our video today because we didn't have time. We didn't do Ask Jens because I think it's more important today that we ask you. We need to ask Catherine. So please let us know what are some other healthcare insurance issues, questions, topics that you would like us to cover, because we are going to have Catherine back. And for those of you who are suffering with mental health issues, please, please, please know that you're not alone. You're not alone, and there are things that we can do to help, and we want to help you. We do want to make this world a better place by sharing our gifts and our talents with each and every person that we come in contact with. So until we meet again next Monday at 3 p.m. Central on YouTube, Jens Johnson, and my Facebook, Jens Walraven Johnson, be big, be bold, and most importantly, be you. Bye-bye.